Politically, you're dumb as a rock. I'm not going to mention you. You know who you are, but you probably don't if you're that dumb. We're asking sometimes to make points that are not good for the Republican Party or the country. Might be good online, might help you raise a few bucks, but I'm tired of that.
Someone just called out their own party on the Senate floor, and they didn't bother lowering their voice. No committee hearing, no cross-examination. Just one senator, a microphone, and a list of people he's done protecting. Watch carefully.
Senator from South Carolina.
Thank you to my colleague, Senator Schmidt. Well said, well done. It's a very logical argument about what's at stake. So I want to tell you where I'm at. I'm an appropriator, and I can never remember putting hold on an appropriations bill ever before. And I'll tell you why I've done it. But I also want to acknowledge the appropriations process and Chairman Collins. We've got a package of bills that are bipartisan from a fiscal conservative side. They spend less than the CR. To all the people in our conference who demand the appropriations do better, we've delivered, but you've given no acknowledgement. You keep saying stuff that's unrealistic. You push the system in a way that nobody can deliver. Politically, you're dumb as a rock. I'm not going to mention you. You know who you are, but you probably don't if you're that dumb. We're asking sometimes to make points that are not good for the Republican Party or the country. Might be good online, might help you raise a few bucks, but I'm tired of that. Count me out. Senator Collins, you've worked with Democrats and Republicans, and before us is a package of bills that I've all supported. Why am I holding? What happened? What happened in Minnesota has to be addressed. Senator Schmidt laid out the choices. I'm arguing to both parties, we need to do a little soul searching here. The man who was shot, I've seen the video. It needs to be investigated. I'm sure it will. There are things being done on the ICE side that a lot of Americans are uncomfortable with. I get that. To my Democratic colleagues, if you want to try to make it more professional, count me in. If you want to have more accountability, count me in. But your rhetoric, count me out. If you were from a foreign country, Senator Schmidt, listening to the debate on the cable channels, you thought we were the Gestapo. Have you had any stories about a guy getting his finger bit off? The ICE agents and the Border Patrol and all federal law enforcement involved in this has been slandered and smeared. And to the Republican Party, where have you been?
What just happened wasn't a policy disagreement. It was a fracture going public. When a senior Republican senator stands on the Senate floor and tells his own party they're politically dumb, that's not frustration. That's a signal that the internal pressure has been building for months and someone finally stopped caring about the optics. The sanctuary city argument is the surface. Underneath it is a party that cannot agree on what winning even looks like anymore. The base wants confrontation. The institutionalists want results. Graham just told the world those two things are no longer compatible. Drop your answer below. Who do you think he was actually talking about when he said, "You know who you are"?
Count me in for holding them accountable. Where are you at, leaders? Where have you been? These people are patriotic. They're away from home. These crowds follow them to their hotel. They intimidate their families. The people pushing this are nuts. They're not normal. The man who got shot, investigate. But do not tell me that he didn't have an agenda. Look what happened 10 days before. Maybe excessive force, let's look. But don't play a game like the people out in the streets that are harassing ICE, that they're not part of the problem. The real problem is not Kristi Noem. You can say whether she's done a good job or not. Stephen Miller. The real problem is that there are 12 states in America who openly defy federal law. Why are we dealing with this? During the 4 years of Joe Biden, you obliterated our borders. You let anybody and everybody that could get here. You created chaos, and a lot of Americans have been destroyed by your illegal immigration policy, and all you want to talk about over there are the cops. Senator Schumer, you blame me, I blame you. I work with you on comprehensive immigration reform. It's not I can't get there, but when you got in charge with Biden, you did everything conservatives were afraid of. You ignored the law. Has anybody mentioned Laken Riley lately? The Laken Riley Act was a great piece of bipartisan legislation by Senator Brett from Alabama. We all came together to say, no more Laken Rileys. Well, what are we talking about? Laken Riley was killed by an illegal immigrant who was in detention in Texas and released because they had no bed space. Under the law, the DHS secretary cannot mass release people. They have to do it on a case-by-case basis. They were releasing people by the thousands. This young lady is dead because they had no place to hold him and then let him loose, knowing he might be dangerous. He makes his way to Georgia and he murders her. 1 year ago, yesterday, we signed into law the Laken Riley Act. To the Republican Party, why didn't we talk about that? Why didn't we remind the American people that part of what we're doing here is to not go back to the Joe Biden ways? We made a mistake here. We're on the run in an 80% issue, and I'm tired of it. We should be reminding the American people we're different than our colleagues on the other side. We're not going back to Joe Biden policies. You can be unnerved by what's happening in Minneapolis. I get it. But the problem is you want Band-Aid solutions. We're going to have a vote on the floor of the United States Senate in 2 weeks as to whether or not we should criminalize the act of local and state officials who willfully disobey laws on the books because it's good politics for them. If we could go back in time, we probably should have put George Wallace in jail for defying civil rights. These laws were on the books long before Trump. What is the right answer when a state or a mayor says, I don't like this federal law, I'm not going to do it because it's good politics for me? I think you risk going to jail. We cannot live in a country this way, where you get to pick and choose the laws you don't like. You can't have 50 state immigration policy. Sanctuary city policy is killing this country. To the 12 states that are doing this, stop. How are you ever going to fix illegal immigration if there are pockets of the country that if an illegal immigrant can get there, they're home free? That's what Senator Schmidt was saying. If you want to reform ICE, count me in. But if you don't get to the root cause of the problem, then you're really not serious about solving it. I will not lift my hold on this bill until I get guaranteed a vote on my legislation that would criminalize the conduct going forward. And what conduct am I talking about? State and local officials openly defying federal law that's been on the books for decades, incentivizing more illegal immigration, massive taxpayer ripoff, and a breakdown of law and order. To these 12 states, you're screwing it up for the rest of us. You need to change your policies and comply with the law that's been on the books for decades, and this should be a punishment. To me, what you're doing is you're inciting chaos. You're putting people's lives at risk. You literally should go to jail if you will not enforce the law, abide by the law. What a novel concept. You break the law, you go to jail. Except you're an elected official, I guess. We have an exception. If you're doing what liberals like, then you actually can break the law. No, you can't. I want to vote on it. And if you got a better idea, count me in. That's my idea. If you can think of a better idea, let me know. If you got ideas about reforming ICE to make it more professional, count me in. But what we will not do in 2 weeks is leave unaddressed the root cause of the problem. And that is 4 years of the Biden administration, 11 million people coming to the country, only God knows why they're here and where they're from, and the chaos they have created. Laken Riley is one example of too many where somebody died because of stupid, dangerous policies. President Trump, like him or not, is trying to lower the temperature in Minneapolis. Tom Homan, good job. But he's not going to quit, and I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up on undoing the damage. I've had it. I've worked with Democrats and Republicans to fix illegal immigration. Now you're doing everything to make it worse. I am not going to sit on the sidelines and not get in this debate and say, sanctuary city policy is dangerous, it's insane, it needs to be fixed. You can convince me ICE can be made better. I don't think I will ever convince you to abandon sanctuary cities because you're wedded to it on the Democratic side. Let's have this debate. In 2026, if you want to go back to Biden, vote for the Democrats. In 2026, if you want to try to get the country back on a rational footing, vote for us. We're not perfect, but they're not either. So, what would it take to lift my hold? A vote, not an outcome. I'm like any other senator. I don't demand a lot, but I am demanding that my solution to fixing sanctuary cities at least have a vote. You're going to put ideas on the floor to make ICE better. I want to put an idea on the floor to get the root cause of the problem, and that's not unreasonable. Vote any way you want. I'm asking this body to guarantee me that vote, and we move forward. Second thing. What happened with Jack Smith? Here's what happened to me. I didn't know, but now I know. They literally started asking the phone company about my phone calls professionally and personally during a period of time when I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee by subpoena. No one's ever suggested I broke the law. This actually really bothers me. If I were a Democrat, I would be bothered too. The original Arctic frost provision was signed off by Leader Schumer and Thune, Senator Thune, and it was seen as to have an ethical problem. Not my intent. I fixed it. I changed the language so it would comply. No enrichment by me or anybody else. But I'm not going to give up on the idea that we should abandon holding Jack Smith accountable. The House, you took the Arctic frost language of the Senate and took it all out. You could have called me about the 500,000. I'd be glad to work with you. You jammed me. Speaker Johnson, I won't forget this. I got a lot of good friends in the House. If you think I'm going to give up on this, you really don't know me. So how about this idea to my House colleagues? Why don't we expand a private cause of action to the 430 Republican groups that may have been abused by Jack Smith? Nothing to do with me. You took the provision and you gutted it. You took the notification provision out, telling senators or congressmen they're asking for your phone records when you're not under criminal investigation, you should know. Senator Peters and I are this close to finding a bipartisan solution to protect the body in the future. It's Republicans today, it could be Democrats tomorrow. We should all want to be notified as senators in a separate branch of government. The executive branch is looking for our phone records unless we're charged or investigating a crime. That's just common sense. They took that out. There was a stampede in the House. Everybody says, well, it passed unanimously in the House. I could care less. What you did, I think, was wrong. You overreacted. We'll fix the 500,000. Count me in. But you took the notification out. I'm not going to give up on that. I'm demanding a vote on the floor of the United States Senate to an amendment that requires notification to a member of Congress if their phone records are being looked at by the executive branch unless they're under criminal investigation. That's a fishing expedition. We should all be against that. I'm going to demand a vote on the floor that groups, not members of Congress, who may have been harmed by Jack Smith have a private cause of action. Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, the Republican National Committee, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the American First Policy Institute, Save America PAC, My Pillow, 430 Republican-aligned groups and individuals, 197 subpoenas against these groups and what they were doing. To the House, if you expect me to deny these people a chance to have their day in court against Jack Smith, you're talking to the wrong guy. I'm urging the Speaker, give these people and anybody else we find, 430 groups, a chance to hold Jack Smith accountable in court. Nothing to do with me. And if you don't do that, you're giving a pass to what I think is the most abusive investigation maybe in the history of the country, Jack Smith. Within 3 days of President Trump announcing I'm going to run again, they have a special counsel, and within 6 months, they got 90 felony charges in the most liberal districts in the country. I believe it was a coordinated effort to make Trump unelectable. I believe it was lawfare, and I'm going to pursue my beliefs. As to me, what have I done to justify this? He says he can defend what he did to me. Great. Get a good lawyer. See you in court. What did I do wrong? I'm the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I'm asking questions. When it came to January the 6th, I think I was more the solution than the problem. I took this floor and say, enough. I don't think the election was stolen. There may have been some abuses, but I'm done. And what happens? I find out during all this time, they're looking at me for being involved in a plot to steal the election when I'm the biggest advocate. Enough. You actually used my name to Verizon. See you in court. To the government. Donald Trump is suing the IRS for $10 billion because somebody at the IRS may have leaked his records. You should sue. If our government can't be sued by people, only by people not in it, then people like us are wolves or lambs to the slaughter. If they ever say that because you're in the government you have no rights, that because I'm a senator, my right to use my phone without being interfered with no longer exists, that's insane. I'm going to pursue the damage done to me, hoping it will deter others in the future. I hope after all this is over, people will not be going on fishing expeditions to find out who a senator was calling and why they were calling ever again unless they believe that senator's committed a crime. Is that too much to ask? This is a defining moment about what's the root cause of the problem on immigration. Senator Schmidt, you're right. People have made mistakes in Minnesota. But the reason we have this chaos is that 12 states are pursuing policies that are insane. I will not enforce federal law because I don't like it. And it's popular. Those days are over. And if a conservative, if you start doing that stuff, we've had clerks of court that would refuse to do laws around marriage. I had a opponent in the 2016 race. I didn't last long. He did better. There's some lady somewhere saying, I'm not going to recognize a certificate of gay marriage because it violates my religious beliefs. And that was her job, right? And one guy said, I think she's right. I will go to jail with her. And I said, we will miss you. I'm not going to jail for that. I've got my own views about gay. But if you're a public official, you don't get to have your own views and be a veto. So on the right, there were a lot of people wanting to make a point. I don't agree with gay marriage. I'm not going to follow the law. Well, you could go to jail too. That's my point. Our political desires have to have some boundaries around here. So I am willing to lift my hold. I'm willing to vote yes. I actually like the products. I'm asking for two simple things. Give me a chance to express myself on what the solution to our problems on immigration are. I'm not asking for an outcome, for a vote. I've got a bill. I want to vote on it. And as to Arctic frost, I want to have a chance to have a vote on a version that would expand private cause of actions for non-members of Congress who may have a claim against Jack Smith. It'd be up to them to prove it. And I want to work with Senator Peters to see if we can find a way to give us notice so that the next administration can't fish for who we're talking to. They got to actually have a real reason. That's all I'm asking. And I think those are reasonable things. I will end where I began. To the appropriations process, it's a miracle we've done it the way we've done it. It's actually what we've been hoping for. Everybody who's been complaining in our conference, let's get back to regular order. Well, when we try to get back to regular order, they won't let us. Let's do less spending. We checked that block. Well, that's not enough. We actually have, Senator Tillis, appropriations below CRs. And like all of a sudden, we're still the bad guys. People have said, let's go to the floor and debate. Well, they won't let us get to the floor. So there are people in our conference, I've just like had it. We got to have a regular, to our leadership. You're my friends. We're playing not to lose. They, on the other side, have the courage of their convictions. They're coming out here with 21 things that we should do to stop abuses in Minneapolis. We're just sitting around looking at each other, worried. Hold the people accountable in ICE who may have broken the law, but stand up for those in the field trying to protect America and have the courage to say, it's not about Kristi Noem, whether you like her or not. It's not about Stephen Miller, whether you like him or not. It's a deeper, bigger problem. And that's a debate worthy of a great country. So to my Republican colleagues, we need to up our game. I'm not asking you to do things that I think are unachievable. Have a vote. If we lose, we lose. But I am frustrated, and there are a lot of people out there frustrated, that the moment is not being met. I think it's time to reevaluate. To my Democratic friends, you think you got the upper hand? You may for the moment, but what you're asking for is really too much. And part of your problem is you haven't really acknowledged the Laken Rileys of the world and all the people have had their lives upended. That's not balance. You're probably right about ICE reform, but none of you, no protesters, nobody up in arms about this young lady being murdered and thousands other like her. So in 2 weeks, we're going to have a debate. I'll lift my holes. All I ask is to have a voice in that debate. Down the road, all I ask for is to give access to people I think were harmed by Jack Smith. They'll have to prove their case, nothing to do with me, and protect the body against fishing expeditions. That's what I'm asking. I hope we can get there, and I'll end where I began. It's not about the appropriations process. I actually think we've done a damn good job beyond what I ever expected. Now, the Arctic Frost Amendment, nobody talked to me. I've talked to Senator Collins. We'll get that right. Final thought, I told Senator Thune, what does it matter if a single senator says the entire House is wrong? We should respect that senator and let them have their say. I've been told the White House doesn't like this. And I told the White House last night, I don't care if you like it or not. I literally texted my friends at the White House. If I were you, I would not call me tonight. And they didn't call me. I don't work for the White House. They're my political allies. I'm close to President Trump. I don't work for him. I don't work for the House. I've been in the House. I enjoyed it. I like this better. Why do I like the Senate better? Because one person has a say. So when I heard that, well, the House passed it, I think they made a mistake. I think they went too far. The 500,000 thing, let's fix. But you took it all out because it's a rush to judgment, political stampede. So don't ever come to me ever again and say you're just one voice. That's not a good reason to not let me know what's going on or to deny me a chance to have that voice. To every senator in this body, when they started this stuff a long time ago, 250 years ago, they made you special. There's things that we can do that nobody in the government can do as a single senator. I am not giving that right away to any friend or foe in the White House. I'm not letting the House take that right away from me. I'm not letting the leadership take that right away from me. And you know why you should sort of be in my camp? It could be you tomorrow. Senator Tillis, you've done some things by yourself that you thought were right. We need more of that, not less of that. Senator Collins, you got ripped by the president and took it in a way that I think people in Maine should be proud of. I don't know what was said, but it was reported as pretty tough. And you stood your ground. And I don't agree with you about the vote, but I know with Susan Collins, here's what I get. She'll listen, she'll make her mind up. And if you think you're going to change Susan Collins by a phone call, you really don't know her very well. She does it with a smile, problem solving. There's not enough of it. So this is a time for all of us to reflect. I never do this. I never hold things. I never say, I got to have my vote or else. I'm doing it now because I think it will reset. I think it will reset the debate. I think it would be good for my party to up our game. I think it would be good for the Democrats to have a challenge on their hands.
Does the Senator yield for a question?
I do.
Thank you, Senator. You and I were talking last night. You mentioned you closed with resetting the debate. I think that's so important right now because we're talking about appropriations bills, which is fine, and I've fully supported that, and the chairwoman's done a great job. But what we're also hearing now, the Democrats have now moved to, they want a policy debate and policy changes on appropriations bills, which, by the way, I thought we weren't supposed to do in this place. But that's what they want to do, whether it's in 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever we come up with on this potential CR for DHS. And I think it's very important for us to remind the country how we got here. This didn't start this weekend in Minneapolis. It didn't start last year when President Trump came into office. It started in January of 2021 when Joe Biden let 15 million people in here illegally and fought every single attempt to stop it. And what we discovered was that laws don't really mean anything if they're not enforced. And we have a president now who ran on the central platform of enforcing our immigration laws and deporting people here illegally. And the Democrats cannot accept that. They can't come to grips with that reality, that the American people, I hear a lot of, we're preserving democracy. Well, if democracy means anything to you, it means that when the American people saw what happened and they sent this guy back here to clean up the mess, that maybe we ought to respect that for a year and a half. But they don't want to do it. So we're going to have this debate, right? So the reason why I laid out the 4 ideas is I want to make very clear to my Democrat colleagues, this is a home game for us. You want the debate on immigration? Bring it on. And we can be out here every single day for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, every single hour, because the American people are fed up with this. And I know you believe that too.
Yeah, thank you. Is that a question?
It is.
Okay. The answer,
that was a question mark at the end. I know you believe that
the
too.
answer is yes.
I know you believe that too.
Yeah, I do believe it too. I hadn't slept in a while, but it's just normally not me. Senator Collins, I talked before, if we do this, if we can't get appropriations through until we solve a policy debate, we're never going to appropriate again. Today it's immigration. Tomorrow it could be abortion. The next day it could be regulatory reform. Senator Collins is very worried that policy debates need to be done in authorizing committees. To my authorizer committees, what have you done lately? Homeland Security, Senator Johnson. What did we do? These committees are becoming political jousting. Authorizing committees have to be bigger than making points. And you get mad at the appropriators, well, do your job. Senator Risch is working well with Senator Shaheen, but we haven't reauthorized the State Department in like 25 years. So this is a dangerous model. And to my Democratic colleagues, you would be cheering on putting the clerk in Tennessee or wherever she was in jail for not recognizing gay marriage because she disagreed with the Supreme Court. You would be cheering, put her in jail. But you're going to defend some mayor who says, I will not cooperate with the federal government as I'm required to by law. That's politics for you. You're all politics all the time. I've worked on immigration. Senator Tillis has worked on immigration. Senator Collins has. When you got in charge, you blew by everything you said you weren't for.
And wouldn't you agree that the reason why we're here, if it was about ICE, or if it was about DHS, or if it was about President Trump, you would see this everywhere in the country. The fact of the matter is, the instance of violence against ICE agents is 500 times more likely in 9 sanctuary counties in this country. And so Minneapolis has become the epicenter. Why? Because the local law enforcement doesn't help ICE agents. They're having to do the job the local law enforcement might do. They're not telling them when criminals are being released on the streets. Think about that. If the American people knew that murderers and rapists and child molesters who are illegal immigrants, that we're not going to tell federal law enforcement about it because you want everybody to stay here indefinitely, that's insane. And that's why it's dangerous. It's dangerous.
Well, let me end on this. I made my point, I hope. Laken Riley is murdered, dead today, because immigration policy was constructed to the point they had too many people, not enough beds, and they let the man go. He was released because of lack of detention space, not because of some merit under the law. She is dead. A year ago today, we signed the law. There are a bunch of cases like Laken Riley, rape, murdered, dead. There's two sides to this debate. I get what you're saying about ICE going too far. I am with Senator Schmidt. God bless these people for willing to do it. The ones that did it wrong, hold them accountable. I am passionate about cleaning up this mess. It was a mess that needs to be cleaned up. President Trump's adjusting with Holman, but I'm not going to give up on the idea that the root cause of the problem is not Trump. It's not Miller. It's not Nome, all the people you hate. The root cause of the problem is that you've instilled into your base it's okay to defy law when you like it. 12 states are ignoring federal law because it's good politics for those governors and those mayors. Like the clerk, you don't have the ability to override a law, Supreme Court case, because you don't like it. If you don't like the decision of the Supreme Court on gay marriage and you're a public official, quit your job. You got to follow the law. If you're a mayor or a governor and the law is clear, follow it. And if you don't follow it, then you're committing a crime. We're never going to have law and order until we insist on it. Appreciate this moment. I appreciate my colleagues listening to my frustration. I am ready to move forward. My requests are reasonable. I celebrate the accomplishments of the Appropriations Committee, but this debate that we're going to have in 2 weeks is long overdue. I just ask to have a seat at the table and a voice. Thank you. I yield.
That wasn't a speech. That was a controlled demolition, and Graham knew exactly which walls he was taking down. Here is what most of the coverage missed entirely. This floor speech wasn't about immigration reform. It wasn't even really about sanctuary cities. It was a senator publicly severing the social contract that holds a governing coalition together. The unspoken agreement that you don't air the internal damage in front of the cameras. Graham broke that agreement, deliberately, on the record. And the line that should have stopped everyone cold wasn't the sanctuary city argument or the Jack Smith accusations. It was this. Politically, "You're dumb as a rock," directed at members of his own party, unnamed, which means everyone in that room was doing the math on whether it was them. That is not how legislatures function when they are healthy. But here is what nobody is asking. Why now? The border has been a Republican talking point for 4 years. Sanctuary cities have existed as policy flashpoints for longer than that. Lake and Riley has been invoked in committee after committee. So why does a senior appropriator, someone who by his own admission has never once placed a hold on an appropriations bill, suddenly decide that this is the moment to blow up the process? Think about what this means if you are sitting on the other side of this. Graham is not a bomb thrower. He is a deal maker. He built his career on being the person who could move between factions and bring things across the finish line. When a dealmaker stops dealing and starts delivering ultimatums, it usually means the deals being offered behind closed doors have stopped making sense. There are 2 reads on this moment, and both of them are uncomfortable. The first read is that Graham is genuinely frustrated, that the Jack Smith subpoena of his phone records, a sitting senator, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, with no criminal charges filed, crossed a line that he cannot walk back from, and the House stripping the notification provision from the Arctic Frost Amendment felt like abandonment by his own side. If that read is correct, this is a senator who feels exposed, surveilled, and betrayed, and the floor speech was the only leverage he had left. The second read is more strategic. Graham is positioning. The 2026 midterms are inside 18 months. The immigration debate is, by his own words, an 80% issue for Republicans. A senator who plants a flag on sanctuary city criminalization, who forces a floor vote, who ties himself publicly to that fight, is a senator who is insulating himself from a base that has grown suspicious of anyone who sounds too much like a Washington insider. The fire may be real, but the timing is also useful. What both camps are missing is the structural argument buried inside the outrage. Graham compared sanctuary city mayors to George Wallace. He compared liberal officials defying federal immigration law to conservative clerks defying federal marriage law. That equivalence is deliberate, and it is genuinely interesting, not because it is correct, but because it is the kind of argument that forces the other side to either defend selective law enforcement or concede the principle. That is a prosecutor's move, not a politician's. The Jack Smith section of the speech lands differently when you understand that context. This was not a grievance tacked onto an immigration argument. It was the second leg of the same case, that the executive branch used its investigative machinery against a legislative branch member with no criminal basis, and that the House erased the one provision that would have created a paper trail for the next time it happens. Graham's demand for a floor vote on notification rights is actually bipartisan in its logic. Senator Peters, a Democrat, is his co-author. That detail got about 30 seconds of coverage. If this is the kind of analysis you are not finding anywhere else, you already know what to do. Here is the consequence that nobody is talking about yet. If Graham's hold works, if he extracts a floor vote on sanctuary city criminalization, he will have demonstrated that a single senator can reset a national debate by weaponizing the appropriations process. That precedent does not stay Republican. The next senator who wants a floor vote on something their leadership would rather bury now has a playbook. Graham said it himself. It could be you tomorrow. And if his hold fails, if the bills move without his amendments, then the speech becomes something else entirely. It becomes a document, a piece of on-the-record testimony that Graham tried, that he warned his party, that he named the damage being done, and that nobody listened. In that scenario, the speech is not a legislative tool. It is political insurance. Either way, the Senate floor will look different in 2 weeks than it does today. The vote Graham is demanding will force members to go on record on sanctuary city criminalization. Some of them do not want to be on that record. Some of them desperately do. The distance between those 2 groups is the real story, and it has barely been touched. The final thing worth sitting with, Graham closed by saying he told the White House he didn't care if they liked it. He texted them not to call, and they didn't. That detail is either a sign of genuine independence from a senator who has spent years being called a Trump loyalist, or it is the most carefully staged moment of the entire speech. The most telling thing is that we cannot be sure which one it is. This story is not finished. The vote hasn't happened. The hold hasn't been lifted. The 430 groups Graham named are still waiting for their day in court. Whatever comes next, it starts here, on a Senate floor with one senator burning his own party's talking points and daring anyone to tell him he was wrong. Thanks for watching. If this breakdown gave you something the cable networks didn't, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to see it, and drop your take in the comments. What do you think Graham is really after? Accountability or positioning? Let's hear it.